What's happening, pal? I am Mark Goodwin, and this is my What's Happening, Pal podcast, where I sit down with the movers and shakers in our community, the people of interest. And today I am thrilled to have with me Tom Schmidt, who is the director of the Columbus Zoo. Thank you for coming today, Tom.
Sure, happy to be here, Mark.
Yeah, my pleasure. So, the Columbus Zoo is probably what our biggest attraction in Central Ohio, I would say.
Yeah.
What a cool place to get to work. We're so glad you came.
Well, it's been a pretty exciting 3 years. Just celebrated my 3-year anniversary a couple months ago, and so yeah, it is. It's an amazing organization in a pretty rapidly growing and exciting part of Ohio and part of the country right now. So I think the timing is right for a lot of things for us and for our community.
Right. Well, I think your background, you came from Texas, right? So
Yeah.
that's a big change, isn't it?
Big shift. So I grew up in Florida and went to school there and worked there and met my wife there and went to spend a few years in Virginia and then about 20 years in Texas. So yeah, this is our first real trip to the true north, and I tell you, it's been wonderful. I mean, this is a very welcoming community,
Yeah.
and we've enjoyed the change of seasons, and I'll take a cold winter over a really hot South Texas August any day of the week. So,
Well, we'll give you a few more cold winters and see
yeah.
see if you still feel that way.
Yeah.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about what you did in Texas. And a little bit I read, it seems like it was maybe aquarium focused. Is that true?
So yeah, I got recruited. I was actually with an organization called the National Maritime Center in Norfolk, Virginia, which was sort of a hybrid aquarium museum, maritime center, historical naval museum, and I was director of operations there. And I got recruited by the team at Texas to come and be their kind of husbandry and operations person. And it was at the time it was a small aquarium. But I was intrigued because I thought there was a lot of potential after visiting the facility, and so I went there, and through sort of being in the right place at the right time, I moved up quick and I became the CEO in 1999.
Okay.
And so yeah, so when I started, it was a fairly modest. It was sort of a smaller aquarium, and fortunately, we had a lot of great community support. We had a lot of great support around the state of Texas, and we really grew the institution. And now it's the 7th largest aquarium in North America.
Wow, no kidding.
Yeah.
Okay. So what is it that attracted you, made you decide to leave the South and the aquarium focused and come north to Columbus, where I know we've got an aquarium, but it's not really the focus of our zoo?
Well, it's a good question. So as I think about my tenure in Texas, I mean, we essentially almost quadrupled the size of that facility. So we added a major marine mammal component. We added a huge expansion focused on the Caribbean Sea. My last project was building I think probably one of the best wildlife marine rescue centers in the country. And so
wow.
Those were all things that I really wanted to accomplish. And as we were finishing those up, I thought, I wasn't really looking for a position, but finishing those up, and that's when I got a call about Columbus. And at first, I'd heard the news about what had happened in 2021, and felt for the team here because I knew some of the folks here. But when I got the call, I thought, and so I'd read a little bit about it, and I knew there were some challenges, but I also knew that there was huge opportunities here, and that it was a fundamentally sound organization with a lot of amazing assets. I mean, there are very few zoos that have 600 acres of land to work with, have a golf course, have a water park to create revenue streams, have one of the best and largest wildlife conservation centers, a 10,000 acre conservation
the
center
wilds.
in the wilds in Muskegon County. So very few zoos have all those assets, and I just felt that this was an organization that I think just was hungry for good leadership, and so when they approached me, I said, sure, I'm happy to talk with you, and long story short, here I am.
Yeah. Well, we're glad you came, and I know it was a little bit of turmoil when you arrived, but from my understanding, that is behind us, and we're moving forward on that. So what's coming next?
Yeah, so the final piece of that is the Attorney General's office will have their final report, and it's going to be a good opportunity. We'll get that report over the next couple of weeks, and And that's going to be a chance for us to really just share again with the community all the changes that we've done at the Columbus Zoo to make us a much stronger, a much better governed organization. You know, we've merged two of our boards. We've created a smaller board, but a much more engaged board of directors. Dozens and dozens of new financial policies and procedures, new auditors. We've got a great new chief financial officer and senior VP of finance, Angel Muma, who's part of our team now. So a lot of change in terms of finance, operation, and things like that. And I think the issuance of this final report will give us an opportunity to, again, share with the community all the things, you know, it was a really bad thing that happened to the Columbus Zoo. But today we are a stronger organization. We're a better managed organization. I would argue we have better leadership. We certainly have a more engaged board. We have much better controls and policies in place. So by any measure that you might grade an organization, we're much stronger today than we were back in 2020. And it was as a result of something bad that happened, but something really good came out of that.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for coming in and kind of being a big part of that. And
Sure.
And I think I was sharing with you, I've lived in Central Ohio my whole life. So my memories of the zoo go back 50 years. I remember visiting with my granddad when it was just this tiny place, right? And so, I mean, talk about changes. I mean, the zoo has gone through so many changes in that period of time, hasn't it?
Yeah. So if you think about when you first started coming and you mentioned the size, you know, up for the probably first 40 to 50 years of the zoo's existence. So we're almost 100 years old. Wow. It was largely on the west side of Riverside Drive, the old zoo. It was a municipally run zoo, which most zoos in the U.S. were originally part of city government. They were part of the Park and Rec Department or some other division within the zoo. And they were, you know, there was probably nothing state of the art about it at that point. I mean, it was like a lot of municipal zoos at the time. It was just difficult to get funding. Cities were trying to balance their budgets. And that was really the sort of the first 50 years of the zoo's existence. And then in 1978, a guy came from Tennessee and Florida named Jack Hanna and had a pretty ambitious vision. And if you look at that period from 1978 until he retired fully just a few years ago, that the Columbus Zoo transformed. And I think everyone recognizes that. Grew in size, grew in scope, grew in conservation impact, grew in outreach, essentially became on some level a national brand, even a global brand in some cases. And so I give Jack a lot of credit for that. And certainly Jerry Bourne, who was there for almost 20 years as this kind of number two person and sort of the behind the scenes operator, those two, I think, had a really good ability to understand the needs of the organization, to understand future needs, assembling land, the building of Powell Road in front of the zoo, and redirecting the entrance, all those things that were put in place to really position us very strongly for the future. And so I sort of look at that period from the late 70s until just a few years ago as kind of the Columbus Zoo 2.0. And now we're entering Columbus Zoo 3.0. So for the first time in 50 years, Jack's not involved with us anymore. We still work a lot with his family and Kathleen and Julia and Susie and they're wonderful people. But as we know, Jack's having a really challenging time now with some real debilitating illnesses. So now we're charting the course for the next 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years. And we spent a lot of time over the last 18 to 24 months developing a new strategic plan for the zoo and developing a new master plan or a framework. We're calling it our 2040 framework. And so we'll be sharing more of that with our stakeholders and public over the next probably 3 to 6 months. But I can tell you it's really exciting. And you can actually see the very early beginnings of that project actually coming out of the ground now. So we've got 3 major construction projects, over $50 million in capital, that will finish up and come online this spring and summer. So
3 of them. So just tell me what those 3 are.
So first we'll start with the wild. So we've created a new RV park out there called the Hellbender Campground. That's about a $7 or $8 million project and will allow a lot more folks to be able to come over to the wilds, spend a couple of days there, enjoy all the amenities, learn about the work we're doing.
Yeah, let me interject there in that if folks haven't been out to see the wilds, I love going to the wilds. That is such a cool experience. You feel like you're out in the Serengeti yourself, right? There's so much land there, and to see the different herds of animals, and the what's that called? The Wild Side Tour, I
Yeah,
think, where they
yeah,
let you kind of get a
yeah.
bit of a behind the scenes look at the animal's care, and you actually get to maybe hand feed a giraffe or some other animals. What a cool experience.
Yeah, we're trying to, you think about, I had the good fortune in 2023, my wife and I traveled to Africa with some of our docents and donors, and it was an amazing experience. But as you can imagine, it's not an inexpensive thing to do, and a lot of folks probably won't have that opportunity. So if we can recreate that at the Wilds, and I think we can, we're working on some changes to the Wild Side program to make it really more closely approximate what a true African safari would be. And I think it's, and for just, less than $100, you can actually have an African safari experience.
Yeah.
So it's pretty amazing. So the Wilds is a great asset. So new campground out there, really excited about that. At the water park, we've got a brand new slide attraction that, from what I'm told, is one of the first of its kind in the nation. So that'll come online this
And
summer.
will you try out the new slide?
I am. So Anthony and I we're going to flip a coin to see. Anthony's our VP out there and see who gets to go first. But excited about that. And then the biggest project is North America. So we're North America region of the zoo is one of the oldest regions of the zoo. So we have Mexican gray wolf there, river otters, black bear, our caribou or our reindeer, moose, big aviary, our bald eagle collection. So there's a lot of really iconic North American species that were in that region, but one of the oldest regions of the zoo. So we've completely reimagined that region, and that work has been we started construction about 18 months ago, so that's going to come online in the next couple of months. And within that space, we're also going to be featuring our new Ohio Center for Wildlife Conservation. So this is a dedicated building that will house and showcase a lot of so we do conservation work all over the world, but we do quite a bit right here in Central Ohio. So our work with, for example, the Plains garter snake or hellbenders, reintroducing hellbenders into rivers and streams in Ohio, work on burying beetles. There's a whole host of projects that we do right here in Ohio that we want to make sure our guests know about, and maybe there's an opportunity for them to participate. So that'll be showcased in the new North America region as well.
Okay. So I'm coming from what seemed to be more aquarium focused. Has there been a lot for you to learn about these animals and the exhibits that we have there?
It has been. It's been a great learning experience. I was fortunate when I was in Texas. I actually had a chance to serve on the board of our national association, the AZA, and actually was the chair of the board one year. And so I served a total
AZA is
the Association of Zoos and Aquariums. So that's our trade association. And through that work and leading that group, I learned quite a lot about zoos. There, as you can imagine, there are many more zoos and aquariums in North America and around the world. And so learning about the challenges with managing a collection of elephants and the conservation work that's associated with that, how important safety is, probably more so even than an aquarium in a zoo where you work with a lot of dangerous animals every day. How do we make sure that our keepers are safe every single day, our guests are safe? So you don't worry too much about animals escaping from an aquarium, but that's something that sometimes keeps me up at night at a zoo. So we have to make sure that never happens. So yeah, there was I had some familiarity with some of that, but it was certainly a big learning experience coming to the zoo. And I think just really understanding the scope of the project. I mean, multiple campuses. I tell the story about it was my first week on the job, and I was signing a purchase order for diesel fuel, and it was a big number. And so I asked the head of our operations team, Jen Ryan. I said, we're buying a lot of fuel. We must have a pretty good sized fleet. I was thinking about in Texas, we had a few trucks, we had a few vans, we had a few vehicles, some forklifts, things like that. So I said, Jen, how big is our fleet? She said, well, Tom, I'm not really sure. And I said, okay, well, can you give me a ballpark? She said, well, I think it's about 350 vehicles.
Wow, no kidding.
And so that was sort of this, first week on the job, understanding that maybe this is more than a zoo. This is actually a small city. I mean, we have a water tower. We have garbage trucks that our team operate to service all of our facilities. We've got a huge physical plant. It's an enormous operation with thousands of employees and $110 million annual budget. So there's a lot of moving parts to it. And I think probably that was the biggest change. It's our operating budget in Texas was closer to $20 million. So this is about 4 times the size of the aquarium in Texas in terms of financial and operating plan. So the complexity of having multiple facilities, one even in a different county, Um, that was a big learning experience, learning challenge as well.
And would you say that's probably been your biggest challenge?
No, I wouldn't say it's been the biggest challenge. There's been a lot of challenges. I think certainly understanding politics in Central Ohio is important, as you can imagine.
Yeah.
Getting to know, trying to this balance of really getting to know our teams, getting to know community members, getting to hold of our stakeholders. I mean, my first 6 months, I was probably spending more time out of the office just meeting with people than I was ever in the office. So that was a bit of a challenge because there were so many folks that I wanted to touch base with, to listen to understand their concerns, hear their thoughts. And then I think too, and I should have anticipated this, but I think, understanding how much the culture was impacted by what happened in 2021. And if you think about, where we all were, a year after the COVID pandemic,
that's right.
Everyone was reeling. Everyone was having challenges. You were seeing, your coworkers being laid off, financial cutbacks. So that in and of itself was really damaging to a lot of companies. But then on top of that, you see what your quote unquote leaders were doing. Those two things I think really compounded to make a tough situation for our team. And I think it's taken a lot of time to really rebuild that trust and get our culture back to where it needs to be and improve morale. And we're making progress. We still have a ways to go, but that was a big challenge.
It's been a fast 3 years, hasn't it?
It has been. Yeah.
So we got do you look at it as an upcoming season? I know as the weather changes, I'm sure your visitor count goes way up. Yeah. So what can we look forward to this coming season at Columbus Zoo?
As I shared, I'm super excited about those projects in all three of our parks. But I think probably the North America Trek program, getting that open, having our visitors be able to see that new experience and see these animals sort of in a whole new light and brand new habitats. I'm really excited about that. So I think that's going to be a great program. We did some interesting things last year. So we had a couple of evening events that we launched. One was called we called it the Columbus Zoo Lantern Festival. And that actually proved to be very successful. So that was in the fall. We had hundreds. I
was out for that. That was very cool.
And so we got such good feedback about that we're going to bring that back again, and really looking at more longer term. How do we make the Columbus Zoo more of a year-round experience? Right now, folks come during the summer, they come during wildlights, but there's not quite enough things to do in the off season, particularly when it's cold or the weather's not great like today. So really trying to figure out how we can both improve the spaces for our animals and at the same time create new spaces for guests to be able to spend time in. For example, last year we opened up our new indoor bonobo habitat. So our bonobos, part of our great ape collection, just extraordinary animals. But if you saw where they were spending the winter time, it was not a great space. And so we knew that was a priority. We got some funding together. We built a new facility, opened that up, and we're already seeing positive improvements in how those animals interact with each other, their behaviors in the wintertime. So that's been really rewarding. And it's also a great thing for folks to be able to come by and see in the wintertime. They can see the bonobos enjoying their space. So creating more opportunities like that. We want to really shift our business plan from, I would say today, we're kind of a regional seasonal attraction, if you will. How do we make the Columbus Zoo and our main campus here, and to some extent even the wilds, more of a year-round national destination, regional, Midwest, and then national destination. And that's part of our long-term strategy.
Yeah. So kind of a personal question. Is there do you have a favorite animal or exhibit at the zoo? For me personally, elephants, I don't know why, I've always been fascinated by them. Do you have,
boy, that's
tough. I read you're kind of a shark guy, right, in the past?
I did a lot of work with sharks. I studied sharks when I was in graduate school. Really became fascinated with them. And but it's hard to say because whatever I pick, I have to, that's going to offend someone probably on our team. So I'd say my favorite animal today. That's a good question.
I would say among your favorites.
Yeah,
then.
Certainly
let's
the
not
Asian
exclude
elephants
anybody.
Are remarkable, and particularly how they behave, their interactions. Seeing what our keepers go through, they're probably among the most dangerous animals that we have to work with, but they're remarkable animals. We have two cows that are pregnant. So in addition to everything else I talked about in this year, we're going to have 2 brand new calves, which will be wonderful. And so, anytime that we can really see successful breeding, that's a celebration for
And
us. So,
when do you think those will be due?
probably sometime in the summer, I think. And so summer and fall. So super excited about that. Red pandas, they're pretty amazing animals. I love the Sichuan takin at the zoo. This hybrid animal that is just sturdy and can be out in the coldest temperatures.
And they're at the wilds too, aren't they?
They are at the wilds. We don't have them at the zoo. We have them at the wild. So I'm fascinated with those animals. So yeah, that's a hard question to answer.
Okay. Well, and you have you can go and bathe an elephant, right?
Yep,
Isn't that one of the things you can do? You've got
that's a pretty neat experience.
So you've got a couple of experiences like that people can come and do at the zoo.
We do. There's probably a dozen or so. The red panda one, I actually purchased one of those for my wife, so she had a chance to view it. That was a lot of fun. Elephant encounters. We have a new one that you can spend a little time with one of our capybaras. So if folks don't know, a capybara is essentially the largest rat in the world. So South America.
Spend time with a large rat.
Spend time with the largest rat in the world. But they are amazing animals, and you get a chance to really get up close with those. Our Wild Encounter team manages that program, and it's a pretty neat experience. And so there's a lot of different ones in there. Ones where you can see behind the scenes and work with our different animals, work with some of our different staff in different capacities. So it's a great way to kind of, you're right, get behind the scenes and see how the zoo operates.
Nice. Well, along the personal question lines, I'll put you on the spot again. What's a book you've recently read?
Oh gosh. So this is probably appropriate. Monkeys on the Interstate.
Okay.
By Jack Hanna.
Yeah.
So I'm almost finished reading that book. There's several books that Jack wrote, and that was one that was in the queue for me. And what I found really fascinating about that book was all the challenges that Jack went through with his family personally, things that he did at the zoo, things that didn't always work out well. He was a master at promotion. Yeah. Sometimes those promotions worked out well. Sometimes they didn't. For example, when the Walenda family was doing the tightrope walk, I think over either the tiger elephant habitat, or there's a great story in there about an Easter promotion and Easter egg hunting that really went off the rails. So it's a funny story. It's a remarkable story about sort of that first 10 years when Jack was managing the zoo. But what really came through, and I knew it all along, but his extraordinary passion for animals, for conservation, for wildlife, for the zoo, for Central Ohio, Columbus. It's a great read.
Yeah, Monkeys on the Interstate.
Monkeys on the Internet. Okay. Monkeys on the Interstate. Yeah, yeah.
Okay. And so personally, I'm a bit of a music guy. That's my hobby and passion. What kind of music do you like to listen to?
Oh gosh, I'll sort of divulge my age here, but probably a lot of music that came out of the 70s.
Yeah.
So anything from the Grateful Dead, Neil Young, to the Rolling Stones and the Who, and that's kind of the
classic
music
rock.
I grew up. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Me too.
Yeah.
Yeah, me too. I like all that as well. And finally, one last one. If you've got a whole day to burn just to binge watch something on TV, what do you like?
Oh gosh, that's a good question. Let's see. Well, we finally got around to watching Ted Lasso. Really enjoyed that, and so I would almost say that I'd want to watch that again. It was such a good series. That was just such a neat, uplifting, and certainly learned a lot about soccer. So when I go see the crew now, I have a better idea when they're talking about the pitch and all these other things. So, I think that was the last one that we saw that I really, really enjoyed.
Okay. I said that was my last personal one, but I've got to ask one more. So coming from Texas, are you a sports guy?
Well, I tell you, I honestly was never a huge fan of the Cowboys or the Texans. I mean, I enjoyed them, and the same thing we had. It was UT versus A&M on the college end.
Right.
But I think being here, it's hard not to be a Buckeyes fan. Certainly after this amazing season. So had a chance to go to a few games, and it's pretty exciting to see that organization.
So when we played Texas in the playoffs, Who were you rooting
Oh,
for?
I was rooting for the Buckeyes,
All right,
100%.
good answer.
Yeah, I mean, as much as I love my friends and our time in Texas, no, we're all in.
Yeah, and your Texas boys are coming here in August to play us.
That's
That's our
right.
first game of the year.
Yeah. So we'll see what they do over the summer.
We'll see how they do.
I'm sure it'll be another close game.
I was here the last time they came, and it didn't go quite as well for us that game.
Is that right?
That's
I
right.
think I heard a story. One of actually my former board chair in Texas was a big UT Longhorn fan, and he went to a UT Buckeye game many years ago. He said there were almost as many people outside the shoe in the parking lot as there was inside the shoe.
Yeah.
He said he'd never seen anything like that.
Yeah, he was right. Yeah. So, well, that's all I really had for you. I appreciate so much your time coming to sit down and talk with us and getting to know you a little better.
Good stuff. Thanks,
absolutely.
Mark. Thanks for having me.
You are welcome. Thank you, Ty.